Many of you probably know about Canadian poet and publisher Rob McLennan's series of interviews, 12 or 20 questions, which he posts on his blog. In July, Rob posted Kimberly Alidio's responses to his questions, and one in particular stood out to me. When asked, "What made you write as opposed to something else?" Alidio responded, "Language wants me." Both of tonight's readers happen to be very queer, but I think Alidio's response offers the right approach for thinking about how queerness operates in her latest collection, as well as that of Jameson Fitzpatrick. These books register the pull of some desire coming from the outside. Responding to that desire from the outside, these poets demonstrate that there isn't necessarily a binary choice between fulfillment and refusal. Queers have developed so many technologies for tracking, arousing, and frustrating desires. Language wants us. But these poets don't give in easily, perhaps if only to escalate just how badly language will want them tomorrow. Fitzpatrick writes of their debut, Pricks in the Tapestry, "This book is a record of my thinking and feeling during my mid to late 20s. Like any record, it is incomplete and imperfect. I do not always identify with the speakers of these poems, even as I recognize their speech and sometimes their desires as my own." Whether the landscape is frankly sexual or washed across the page, a keyword for these poets might be milieu. The scene of Fire Island and all its contradictions, the scene of the page, which, as Alidio aspires to, creates a language inventory to divest certain normativizing meanings from language. What does language want from us? Both Alidio and Fitzpatrick make some mischief along the parade route of literature. Fitzpatrick is clearly inspired by the biggest and gayest dudes of the New York school, though they are no obedient pup. In the poem After the Reading, Fitzpatrick writes about an exchange of aesthetics and values between generations of writers. They begin, "I know what it means when the old poet says he liked my more complex poems. Even more, I know which ones he means, the ones I read for him, not him specifically, but because of the fact of him." Throughout Pricks in the Tapestry, Fitzpatrick takes up the tools of their mentors and at times uses those tools against the establishment to expose the racism, misogyny, and classism that have always been features of the scene. Alidio, on the other hand, enjoys working against the grain of the given antagonisms. As the title of her recent post on the Harriet informs us, language poetry soothes her. She writes, "My reading experience in language poetry has led me to write about translation, post-colonial diaspora, and my family's many languages. Language poetry may not provide a place for a coherent poetic self, but it may offer a set of practices relevant to our present catastrophe, a space beyond recognition, legibility, surveillance, conditioning, incentivization, and expectation." As we consider the ongoing catastrophe of the present, these poets demonstrate how language, history, and the outside wants us, and how we choose to respond to that desire with all our tongues and bodies and genders and kinks, saying yes, saying no, and also saying something truly more poetic than that binary allows. It is now my pleasure to welcome first Jameson Fitzpatrick, who will be followed by Kimberly Alidio. Welcome, Jameson.
Thank you so much, Eric. That was lovely. And thank you to Sid for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here and to hear what's coming. So I'm going to be reading something old, something newish, and something new. So I'm beginning with something from a chapbook that came out in 2018 called Mr. And it's a sequence of fragments, and each fragment appropriates its language from the last chapter of a book, of a novel specifically. So you'll hear some cut up Charlotte Bronte and Jane Austen, and there's some Joan Didion in there too. It's about marriage. Reader, I married him. The ladle with which she was basting, suspended in air the same space of time, knives also had rest, fully explaining also why I had thus acted. I am my husband's as fully, his as free as in solitude, his as gay as in company, then his vision, as I am still putting into words the effect of the landscape of his ear, where he wished to go, what he wished to be done. There was a pleasure in my service, that to yield was to be ambitious yet. I felt, I remember, little perk of self-approbation with which fulfillment means disaster. A cold hand came on, startled to begin with. Close together in front of the steps up to the house, your Mrs., page 148. Meantime, this man. At intervals, an anxious feeling. Momentary doubt of its being possible to be cured of her attachment. And really, it was not long. Every day was giving her fresh reason, a very promising step of the mind on its way to resignation. Within a month, very little white satin, but in spite of these deficiencies. Felicity in so unusual a form. Mr. missed exceedingly his affection. Mr. half as well as I do, my dear. Mr. so near a vicinity to her very material advantage, the promise of balls and young men, suspected by her father, she could still moralize every morning. Their characters suffered, he bore. It is a great comfort to have you so rich. They began down the old pace into moments when she seemed to be sitting beside her lover, transitory sensation of slipping. Mr. seldom spoke, Mr. denuded, penciled in as December, to whom something irreparable had happened. At Mr.'s side, the strain of no room in her mind. He filled her cup and plate, stray address, his hands behind his head. A lady who was probably his wife opened a book in a bedroom on the 5th floor. He had gone to the barber's. Why should she not tell him the truth? 84. Today, I saw no point to him. On the whole, I concentrate the way light would on a windowsill. I threw the coins in the water in such a way I almost moved. I refrained. In my defense, I know nothing. Since it was the fashion to be in love with married people, she could run away any time she intended to hammer his head into a jelly, a little travel stained over those loose planks last summer, packing away his tools, a little swim before dinner. There was no one thing in the world she desired. Like antagonists that had overcome her, she knew a way to elude them, her old bathing suit still hanging, the night she swam out, the bluegrass meadow. And next, I'm going to read one long poem, which is from my recent book, and which, I don't know, I realized when I was looking back at some stuff, had something to do maybe with that project, even though I couldn't have known it at the time. The poem they didn't write was about how the company of women had constituted the best of their life, was a love song, advocated for platonic intimacy as the ideal form, quoted Plato quoting Socrates, quoting Diotima, quoted Tim Dugos telling Mary Ellen, I want to be a woman when I think I could be like you. Wondered, why have I already quoted men in a poem about my love of women? Quoted Kate, I don't want your face, I want what your face can do. Those lines were from the first thing they ever heard her read, and they never forgot them. The poem they didn't write was about the brilliance of women, their friends, how many of their most enduring relationships began with the two of them recognizing the animal of the other in their poems, was about identification, reproduced Anna Schwir's The Same Inside in full. Whenever someone asked about their favorite poems, they said that one. Also, Anne Sexton's Just Once. Also, many poems by women about men, but just once, let's leave them out of this. That's what's so great about the Schwier poem, how the encounter with the woman on the street replaces the need for the replacement with the real thing. The lover is just a stand-in. The poem they didn't write always remembered that. The poem they didn't write began when they were dismayed to realize they'd written a book about men. In the poem they didn't write, they felt free to say, I'm not one. The poem they didn't write was an effort to correct the image they saw reflected at the vanity. In a meeting, Samson, just one man, said, it's strange when he thinks of you in the company of women, but there aren't many in the poems. Diana agreed later over drinks, adding that it wasn't just about being friends with mostly women, though it's true you were, but also about how women were your strongest influences. Yes, the poem they didn't write would be an account of their literary education, beginning with the Brontes and Mary Shelley, and include everything, all their favorite writers and the order they came to them, and also their many brilliant friends and their greatest teachers, Marie and Anne, and Brenda and Deborah, who also happened to be some of their favorite poets. What a lucky life, they thought, working on the draft. It was also about the imperative to write like a man, which they had never understood or wanted to do, though they had heard some of their brilliant friends confess this desire in spite of themselves. They still couldn't figure out what it meant, except that perhaps the desire to write like a man was really just the desire to be read like a man, which itself was really the desire not to be read like a woman because of men. I don't want your face. I want what your face can do. The draft was didactic, but it felt like they were on to something. They returned to their first idea for the poem they still hadn't written, a personal history of feminine identification in the form of a list. They told Sasha about it as they waited for the play to start. The poem would begin with their mother, their childhood closeness, with their stealing their older sister's dresses and library books, which they used to read in a single sitting on the floor of the downstairs bathroom, door locked. A little girl named Alice lived in the mirror there. She and her world looked exactly like them and theirs, only she was a girl in hers. Then the poem would turn to vignettes of adolescence. Abby using an eyelash curler as a roach clip, Abby in oversized plastic sunglasses, Abby passing them the roach and the sunglasses and then taking a picture, the two of them searching her carpet for shake or scraping resin onto a piece of paper when the town went dry, thanking Goddess when they remembered a nug tucked away in a jewelry box, how hard they had laughed until they cried or peed or begged the other to stop, each of them weeping once in the arms of the other, sharing a bed. When they thought of their happy times inside that unhappy time, they thought of her room, her ashing a Turkish royal out the window in the back of Megan's car, or later when Abby got her license, packing the bowl in the passenger seat as she drummed the wheel, or once they got their license, the rides to school with Sophie and Meg, seeing that terrible gay indie film with Aaron instead of going to prom. They and Abby weren't speaking then. And the soundtrack. They couldn't write the poem they didn't without Joni and Carly and Stevie and Patty and Ricky and Liz and Alanis and Fiona and Amy and Sean and Regina and Rachel and Corinne and Jenny and Joanna and Martha and so the poem they didn't write had to record something of the endless exchange of mix CDs between Abby and them, their epic reconciliation playlist. The nights the only plan was to lie back and listen. Next, the poem followed them to New York, to parties with Martika and bars with Siani and concerts with both of them, who liked some of the same music and had new voices to trade to, further nights to stay up smoking, then to galleries with Dana and Sophia, after parties. But the list became monotonous, all coterie and no content. They tried again. In a blank document, they wrote title, the one boy at the girls' sleepover, and nothing else. They went to Athens with Elisa, who listened to them describe their struggle and suggested they find a model. They thought about it until they thought of Olenna Kalidiak Davis's The Poem She Didn't Write from her book of the same title. She'd visited when they were in grad school and led a master class. The poem they didn't write was a response to the prompt she'd distributed, a worksheet titled Irritable Reaching, Blank, and the Psychology of Poetic Practice. The poem they didn't write reached irritably. The poem they didn't write was missing something. The poem they didn't write was not interested in psychology. The poem they didn't write missed analysis while they were in Greece. They discussed gender a lot there, in analysis and in Athens with Elisa. It was a vexing question they were asking. But the poem they didn't write wouldn't let that in. It was meant to be a celebration, a praise song, simple and hummable, something children could sing and around, the girls in them at the sleepover. The poem they didn't write was about adoration, admiration, and only a little bit about what they coveted, some new and perfect lines from Courtney crackling in their inbox. The poem they didn't write couldn't do their friends justice, was just a stand-in, tried anyway, ended abruptly with a recommendation. This poem is almost over. When it is finished, please read Kate Mahoney, Diana Hamilton, Sasha DeBevick McKenney, Elisa Gonzalez, and Courtney Bush. May you find some joy in their company as I do. And then I'm going to read one very new thing, which is a piece of prose from a new project that once again felt somehow related. And it's called Moments of Pleasure after the Kate Bush song, and I'm just trying to collect those. Not returning, but the feeling of return. Back in the city, I'm just another girl in a sweater. Not coming back, but being back, the feeling of having recently returned to a beloved city or just slipped into a favorite sweater, not unlike the feeling of having given in and put on the song whose hook has been stuck in your head. Back in the city, I'm just another girl in a sweater. The relief of the completed action, scratched itch. Once I crossed an ocean just to have this feeling upon coming back. Not true, but it sounds good, like the song I couldn't stop listening to that particular month. Back in the city, I'm just another girl in a sweater. I wore a sweater on the plane so it would be true when I tweeted the lyric from the back of the cab home from JFK. That's true. Back in the city, I was just another girl in a sweater. Sweet escape into the relative anonymity of Manhattan. I don't live in Manhattan anymore. To return home now is to arrive at a different destination. After I moved in, I told Elisa, who had been living just a few blocks away, that I was looking forward to when this neighborhood started to feel like home, waiting for it, almost anxiously, that nagging worry it won't. Then the other day, having come back from another place that was once but is no longer home, being struck by it, as if having suddenly stepped into sunlight, the walk 2 blocks from the market, which, like the walk, is no longer new to me. Trace of a cigarette from where I can't tell at first. I don't smoke often anymore, and other people's cigarettes don't always smell good to me now, but this one does. Like a gift, it reminds me, returns me to a time when cigarettes were still new, behind Abby's bedroom door or on the quad of the college with the little theater where we used to go see foreign films. Deucing a Marlboro Red slipped out of her mother's pack, taking turns play acting the life we wanted. It's fall there in the memory of the imagined future, sweater weather. Even seeing the woman sitting on her stoop with a cigarette, see me take an exaggerated, appreciative whiff, what would normally embarrass me to be observed this way, doesn't diminish how happy I am to be back, sun on my face, in a sweater again, just another. Thank you so much.
It's amazing. Thank you, Jameson. And Hi, everyone. As I'm sending Stacy back to her seat, I am going to start with some poems that were written deliberately influenced by her journal poems. I'm going to start with my forthcoming book. I have another book called Why Letter Ellipses, out by Selva Esquira on December 1st. And so the kind of thing about this journal poems experiment for me was that later in the book, I do a lot of lifting from historical documents about Filipinos, like 1930s, in the same kind of journalistic, poetic. But I'm not going to read this. So, but I want to thank Small Press Traffic, Sid, Eric, amazing, thank you so much for that, and Danishta. Underworld, underworld, underworld. Oh, there are some lines from Nina Simone's 21st Century. Up here, someone said, I don't get what's expected. You laughed. Corner of my eye, my misunderstanding is deliberate. Key to the way we live. Don't try to sway me over. I sent a self-report, tried my best with surveillance, watched the watchers and the clock. To your day, on your day. Open to the open, casual shaming, I take back under to our home, where broken open is whole, healthy. Your day will go away. And intimate with all of Arizona, a common ritual position, tall over lowered eyelids, pagan groom's statuesque form. Silt and tidal layers corrode, give me your hand. Landed on soft Oregon, your grunt by my scruff, I floated against gravity and take my hand. Sipped long nectar from your center, thick ropes, tummy rode down thigh trunk, worshipful. Better than anybody's preacher man. Blood on a light switch plate, a butch hand swipe after sudden onrush. 48 hours, no food, feasted on rotisserie chicken, dark meat only, stepped on glasses, calmly taped together, spiky black kyanite. Typed an email, right hand encaustic with blood, wedding, wedding, wedding. Terrible shower stall scene, body wash overturned, sopping washcloth, dripping plosive blue. Forever kink. Today an old friend broke up with me, confessing the kind of distressed abandonment hidden in a worry, I'm not myself, I might be possessed. Straight women obsess over boundaried territory. Is my gender capture the flag? Gift all of yourself is noli me tangere. #1 buzz look. Forever is my kink. A White Sox day plus coconut Assam, a gnat or goat floated in muffin with a hair poetics. I want to write a poem with Bernadette's notebook. Now I've told you. Is it true I'm unrecognizable? Gorecki omens keep on the frame rather than jut up furniture, metaphor. On the fly, gutter guitar. Rouged boar. A kind question still tests attention. Who rats? Go ahead, ask me about what I love. Someone's answer, a rouged boar. Sound familiar. If this were your project reading, I'd come touch your arm. Don't panic, pool lactic acid. Cow and cup can be both entered without a puncture. Same topology, not like cup and cow. Touch base or finger bang. Collectives of words, gun run from mountain. A white whale disturbed journal from its row. I tend, I know. My palette snug in the graph paper's tiny box. I know who you are. Line by line, surprise new souls, cucumber eyes. If this were a sad dinner out, you'd collect sounds of flung down things. Case, yawn, a banana. Receive with care. Enter a knot, not a line. Lineage, a fancy one. Touch my knee under an untouched dish. My eyes directed to unseemly lines. Sound good, gun to back. You're careful, his careful, unlikely shape. My form out the bore, onto a bed of nails. Silence is a cow. A strange plunge, now new soul's cold bath. One's editorial, one needs seeing, one breathes litter on a page. Remember to tell a white will never to edit my lines, or go ahead. I am crying, it read, and later I cried, a long one. Men get mean to another. I have to read between official hours, suckholes. One says we're driven mad by madmen with disregard. My former name, nice. Or try to top me, not enough whole. And this is my New York poem. French for horsehead anarchy. Not quite a town, stutter, it's a titty, get a ring, split the Reuben, turn. Ukrainian Sunday nostalgia into Polish courting song, solemnly disavow all power, but watch. No decent hour for Russ and daughters. Angelino plums. Hail a yellow, make quick decisions, the clock's permanently off, call little ones in their 30s gabies. Queer, still nubile, hey, I'm the ingenue here with ungraded papers still wet after 10 days. Debridement, tap tap, porcelain tissue. Tub wave, French for horsehead anarchy. Childhood spent recounting every liturgical hour, hurting infinitude's feelings. Box confession isn't confessional on the page. Mild frostbite, intense desire, my nap window. White snow, four corners, avoid. If you're still lucid and queer after a certain age, they'll try to kill your knowing. Just send more gabies to the hot box up the street. Care more about the CIA than care to admit the board cares for language? Well, hallelujah. Put in time in a lift, my golf and the view voiceover. Faintly opera, straggling teen mule deer, felt brimmed, wrung apple, Irialis neighbor. Bodega to bodega for duct tape, half and half, and lapsan. Critique with even more figuration. I don't hear song lyrics. Come on, say the money number. Give her the last kare kare and waffle. Okay. I think I have two more from this book. This is called Adatratnoti, which is takes place in the Tucson Jewish Community Center. I wanted to lay my stomach flat against the concrete floor, press my cheek against tercettes, staggered and descending, cry on glass, a pool that can't form in the dirt below. I desired the poet's reinterred force, keening beauty, salvage our bodily ground, account for not those who died for my freedom, but at my expense. My sovereignty steps onto the dead. Breathing destroys in a very plain way. Transfusion via our mouths. Carolee Schneemann's fuses turned me on. Even a penis looks good in heat maps. Snow doesn't fall directly, but circles over your head imperceptibly, spirals my fingers inside you. Will you fist me if I beg in a whisper or without sound? Subconsciously, the way you said, I love you, a dozen times before you said it, a doorway unburied, fallen open to the words. Actually, I think I'm gonna skip that one. And then I'm gonna close with a long poem from One Steve Bones Choral, which was out from Belladonna August 1st. And I'm really, really, really lucky to be able to read the entire book, reading by reading this fall. So this is the third of 6 long poems. And in here is, I don't know what else is in here. There's a little bit of, I think Maya Daren's At Land. There's in the whole book, you know, there's, whether you know this or not, there's no words of connection or relation or pronouns, except when there's in quotations. And I think there's barf in here. And then in this long poem, I do compound words, so I'll read them faster. We'll see if it's. Wave reverse. Judge, waves, gnarled hands, spits decree. Sign pitched, curb, ombre, morning cloud. You are spotted running in a dry creek bed. I'm home opening every pair of scissors for St. Anthony. You will run far without a passport. I stop showering. You will smell me and come back. Drive slow, howl. I spend the hottest part of the day on the overpass. Blocky triangular code laces rectangles. Latinate and Masonic crosses. You took your toy, made a bed of my dress. Night torso, find half, bottom, salt top, pelvis, sliced grapefruit. Let go, railings, hug, building, drive. Unawake, split gray. Photos, sun associated, Arizona. Apply, enter bedrooms, audience, respite, validation, mercenary marriage. Pull, house, color, earth, exhausted. Cool floors, dark gleam, red wine. Brightness, compound, walls. Boy wears lipstick, huge, soft, womanly smile. Climb dress, hosts, white partner, impeccable taste. Fortress, clothes, cool, loose fabric. Barefoot, roam, run, fingers, books, rebuke, curtains, morning. Illumined, shaded house, hot sun, seated juice. Sea, foam, caviar, areola. Red, sea, crust, bread, fat, need. Nurse, slippery, gleaming, yellow, dark spot. Spare sheets, spare towels, dust, handle, empty spaces, sing, full throat. Hands, times, alien. Fear, white, pulsating. Aura, look down, dragon. Tell me. Yellow wall, show, answers. Answers, not the point. Confide, coping, answers. Lover, tend, angles, eyes. Do, can, make, lost, yellow wall, rocks. Oriental woman is no more than machine, makes no distinction between one man and another, circle of occupations. Smoking, going to the baths, painting her, eyelids drinking, coffee, confines her existence. What makes this woman, in a sense, so poetic is that she relapses into the state of nature. Wake, bed, delicate white, bone ribbon, blonde brunette, call cloud, loop bowel, Polly, Esther trans, parent, shop, bag puff, sky, night 7, teen learn, finger loom, young brother, hum, mill, South River, Jenny Lasso, sensitive girl, termites house, hold, correlates, television, half-life, Clementine, no nerve, nor chore, bring, mother love, return, tornado, rain, ceiling, roach rat, simple, cease, ragpot, quaint collapse. Shorewood, women, reach, pieces, move, own, shoot, current. Man, change, mind, walk, interior, found furniture. Look, waves reverse, silent, accusation, landscape, look, small figure, pick, boulder, string, rocks, leave, women, chess. Waves watch, animals, not people, wear jewelry, holds hair. Pawn turns black, running, Chihiro, spirited away. Reverse, puffs, smoke, eyebrows, lips. Moving, pieces. Middle, pause, society. Silent, watching, social gestures. Women hold table, limbs, leisure. Folded, fit, head, rocks, belly, palms, curving neck, rocks, extended wrist, earlobe, ball, foot, horizon, figure, searching. There is no other information in it but its immediate saying, no reservoir, nor armor of meaning. Everything is in the speaking of it. It is formula. But this formula corresponds to no ritual. Amor, mahal, actions masked as objects. Don't want, tore me apart. Crack, night window, condensing mouths, hiccup, mastery. Inhale hangs distracted, cold, right, mother, large, gestures open, mute. Words spiral, waiting room, hesitation, replaces lost luggage. Body, last word, conjured, haloed, unwarm, benediction, machine. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to a Q&A. If people want to drop some questions into the chat box, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Kimberly. That was incredible. Thank you, Jameson. To get us started on our Q&A, I wanted to ask you both because I'm just genuinely curious what writers are up to right now. What has your practice been like since March? I know that Jameson, you said you've been writing something new. I wonder if that's, yes, I wonder if that's true for you too, Kimberly.
I'm waiting for Jameson to start.
I had the hardest time writing for such a long time, which is part of the reason why I wanted to come up with a project of, a specific thing to do. And I thought, I don't know, moments of pleasure would be nice to take stock of in the present and or in memory. But it's been slow going. It's a newsletter, and what I read is the most recent and also the second one ever. So just starting off there.
Well, I'm actually in poetry school. It's another discussion. But I try to take whatever assignment as some kind of excuse to get somewhat, I don't know, there's a lot of things that are so devastating that actually, if I just sit and kind of take it, I think opportunities or invitations to just sit down and I try to just trust whatever, then I am trying to write things. But I try to see whether anyone is looking for something or ask for something, and then that actually helps me just keep on going. So it's kind of more of a conversation. So I think that would be really great for those of us who, you know, I mean, there are times when it's just really like, no fucking way I can write. But if we invite each other or kind of ask, I think that really would be great.
Yeah, I love that, the inviting one another. All right, from Jessica Stark. I would love to know how the writers are finding it, if they are finding joys these days.
I guess, I mean, I am collecting pleasures ostensibly, but pleasure and joy aren't exactly the same thing. Like pleasure can be cheap, you know, and easy. I don't know if that's true about joy, but when it comes to joy, you know, my friends probably, but that's kind of like the same as always. I live with my really good friend, and our time together and the fact that we have one another brings me joy, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I feel I'm lucky to be living with who I live with. That's just the first thing I could say. But I don't know, I think I've adjusted my definitions of what joy is. And so it just can't be, I guess, what I thought it would be. So I don't know, I just, sometimes in some ways, I guess, if you're just like living, that you're like fucking shit up and like, that's kind of joyful.
All right, we got a few more. I'll read this one from Melissa Mack. Jameson, I wondered if you could talk about the structuring device of the poem I didn't write, or in the first draft.
Yes, thank you. It was really, I don't know, a device of necessity, which tends to be the case, I guess, when I turn to a device of some kind or another. But I just had a sense of this like poem that existed as like a platonic form version of itself that I knew I wanted to make exist in the rest of the world I live in. And it just wasn't coming. And sometimes I wait a long time sometimes before I can figure something out. And I just decided to try to write about my continued failure to write this vision of it I had in my head, which is as close as I got to the vision in my head, but I liked well enough that I decided to keep it.
All right, and we got a question from Max. Max writes, thank you both so much. Kimberly, your reading made me want to ask you about the relation between sex, wit, and sound. Wonder if either one of you want to speak on those three elements reverberating in your work.
Yeah, I would actually love to talk to Max about that too. But I don't know if I actually think about it, I suppose. I mean, I guess well, I mean, I think I've thought a lot about, I mean, the reason why One Steep Bones Coral is the way it is because of so much grief and heartbreak, which I didn't want to make public, but there is kind of a, you know, there is like an actual paratext underneath it that got kind of taken apart that sort of narrates that. And so, you know, there's sex in there too, but there just aren't people necessarily. And then I think the next book really is kind of in a way, well, I mean, this speaks to sort of the question before about joy, but I mean, I do think there is joy in poetry. And I think that is, for someone like I've had several careers and I kind of hit on one, I mean, close to 50, that this is like what my life is, then I mean, I have joy about that, you know, and transforming my life, tearing it apart, building it up again. And so I think, you know, I'm like lucky that sex is part of that. And I don't know, things are just fucking funny. And so, you know, language is just funny also. And I'm really lucky to have a kind of ear that gives me pleasure as well. So I would just say that, you know, a lot of writing is just sort of to humor myself.
All right, I think we're there. My cat thinks we're there, so.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you both, Jameson and Kimberly. Really incredible readings. Thank you all for your questions and your presence. Now we will hear a performance from improviser and sound artist Danishta Rivero. She explores the artifacts resulting from heavy processing of the voice, as you heard a little bit earlier, and the relationship to its acoustic resonating presence. She is a part of two duos, Voice Handler and Las Sucias, and she makes just like gut-wrenching work that I mean that in just like the best way possible. So I'm really so excited that we have her here, and I think that if you can all mute yourselves, and we're getting our settings all in place. And I think in the meantime, I will share a link in the chat to our event that's coming up in November. So you can join us there with Mary Berger, Alexis Almeida, Coulter Jacobson will be introducing, and Zachary James Watkins will do some music. So that's the info for that. And I'm gonna invite Danishta to say a few words about what we will be hearing. But at this moment...
Hello?
Ah,
okay.
Yes.
Hi, yes, thank you. I am so excited to be a part of this, so thank you so much for inviting me and letting me join and throw some weird sounds at you. You know, thank you for also that introduction. That was pretty much what I do. So, voice, electronics, and what I do is that I guess I'm an improviser, and I usually work with voice and electronics, but what I do is that I either process the voice or make the voice control the electronics. So there's this very deep relationship between what I'm doing with my voice and the electronic sounds that you're hearing. And yeah, I think that I'm just gonna do something. So stop talking. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know what to say. That was really just, I'm speechless. So thank you. There's no words. I think if folks want to stick around for a little bit and chat and send your love to the two readers, Jameson, Kimberly, to Danishta, Evan, Eric, thank you for introducing and moderating, and thank you all for coming. And yeah, I'll be around for a while, so feel free to hang out and chat for a bit.
I have a question for Danishta. I'm getting some reverb back in. Do you have a musical background? Or is it mostly electronic? Lighting design, whatever. Because like at the very end there were some repeating notes. I don't think that they were repetition. I think they were your voice. And they were intonated properly.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you.
I do
hear that echo. Weird.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me turn off I had a sound setting for your, now I think it might be better now.
Okay. Hello. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I do. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, mostly, especially with how I treat my body. It's a surprise that it keeps a tone, but it stays in tune. But I do have a background in music. I studied music and I studied electronic music as well. But my principal instrument was voice, and so I studied singing, and then I studied some electronic music, and then I kind of, yeah. So there's a little bit of both. There's like coming from this place of knowing things and, you know, scales and stuff, and then this other place of wanting to not know that, you know. So it's maybe a bit of a struggle, especially I think as an improviser. One wants to not rely on, like, I don't know, licks or, you know, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, there's a little bit of both in what I do. So.
No, I think you want to explore sound, not in any structure,
Yeah.
whether it's from Western civilization structure or even ancient cultures. And it allows for that because there are certain things as you were playing that were very ancient, you know, that would come into certain things. So it was cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that the voice lends itself to that kind of sounding. You know, it's probably, you know, like the first instrument, you know, and so I think that it lends itself, and one can build structure, like in the moment. So it's cool. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.